Netanyahu right now is in the very bad situation from an economic perspective, from a social perspective, from a political perspective, from a military perspective, at all levels. Netanyahu is going to lose at the end of the day. It's a matter of time. Many people expected the Hezbollah to crumble. See right now on the ground is that they have been able to regroup and recreate a full leadership. The operation that they did, and all these reserve soldiers were there. How did they know exactly? They knew exactly what they're doing. Like they timed it so well. They had intelligence from inside Israel. Hezbollah is sending a message that we can hurt you too.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight on the i3 Pulse, we'll be diving deep into the chaos that's been occurring in the Middle East. We'll be going into some operational blunders on the Lebanese border, and we'll be talking about, did Hezbollah bounce back or have they been crippled? And finally, we'll be uncovering some murky alliances, and we'll be speaking about one of the biggest intelligence failures that led to the pager attack. So Sheikh, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bless you.
Jazakumullah khairan. So we'll jump right in. So just before the Golani base attack, you had Yoav Gallant, the defense minister of Israel, who was bragging about how much damage they've done to Hezbollah the same day. And then just later on, they got their base struck. So is Netanyahu winning or is he losing? It seems like they're taking a lot of hits, you know.
Today, there was almost a mutiny in the Israeli army.
Really?
Yeah. Lots of Israeli soldiers signed even a petition saying we're gonna quit the army, or they would have to just basically create a peace deal and do a hostage exchange. There's a mutiny in the Israeli army right now. So trust me, Netanyahu is literally right now he's failing, literally. And this is basically, by the way, this is projected. Anybody who understands the geopolitics of the area, for you to be able to do a close to correct, because at the end of the day, forecast is statistical. It's a possibility. When I give forecasts, you need to basically say, look, these are the possibilities, and this is maybe a little bit higher than this because of why. You need to understand the geopolitical. If you don't understand the geopolitical relationships within the region, you can't give a forecast. It'll be literally like shooting in the dark. We knew that Netanyahu was going to lose at the end of the day. It's a matter of time. And even if he didn't lose now, he will lose tomorrow. But right now, basically, we're seeing lots of signs of failure. Right now, the failure of invading Lebanon, total failure until now. Things could change, yeah, maybe. Let's see what happens. But until now, it's been a failure. Number two, destroying Hezbollah. Total failure. The leadership of Hezbollah was rebuilt fully. They haven't been able to now assassinate anybody. Number three, pressuring Hezbollah to stop the missiles or go back to Litani. Forget about the capacity. Capacity wasn't destroyed, and they didn't make him stop. Another failure. Public opinion of the world is almost all of it against Netanyahu. You know, even the French President Macron is, telling Netanyahu, "Hey, dude, the United Nations that you're disrespecting is the one that created your state." He's like, "Screw you. We created our own state." On every level, right? Now let's talk about another huge goal. The main goal of the invasion of Lebanon right now, or at least the trial of invading Lebanon, is to bring back the settlers into northern Palestine. It didn't happen. Now, from both sides, there are more Lebanese people who were displaced, but more Israelis were displaced. So there's less safety, more displacement, didn't win anything, didn't stop Hezbollah missiles, didn't beat up Hezbollah, didn't limit its capacity, nothing. You see what I'm saying? Iran basically, a couple of weeks ago, whatever it is, basically they fired those 300 rockets. Until this moment, Israel did not reply back. What the heck are you doing? Like the Israeli citizens, like, what the heck is he doing? I mean, if somebody does that to a country, it's supposed to reply back within like 48 hours. And they said, we're going to hit back in 48 hours. I'm like, bro, it's been like, a couple of weeks now or whatever. The biggest failure of all is what? Is that Netanyahu saying, we're going to hit the nuclear sites, we're going to hit the oil refineries, we're going to hit. And then the Americans, Biden said, you cannot hit any nuclear sites nor any oil facilities. And like a little puppy, Netanyahu said, yes, sir. Because the Americans said, this is a red line. I think this is the most stern messaging of the Biden administration to Netanyahu. Because every single time he pushed back, and this time he shut his mouth. Like, you need to understand, Netanyahu right now is in the very bad situation at every level. From an economic perspective, from a social perspective, from a political perspective, from a global international relation, public opinion perspective, from a military perspective, at all levels. Netanyahu is in huge trouble. And I would say basically the hitting Iran is going to be trying to reverse some of that. Will they hit? I said before, they will hit. They'll have to hit. Now, yesterday there was a refinery in Iran that was basically blew up. I'm pretty sure it has to do with some like type of hacking or sabotage from the Israelis. But okay, it's one refinery. It's not a big deal. Iran is humongous, right? It's sitting on like oceans of oil and natural gas and so forth. But will the Israelis hit? Until now, my forecast is they have to hit. Even if it's a failure, even if it's a joke. Because at least you need to say, look, we've hit back, you know. But the failures of Netanyahu, literally, like if I put a list, X, red X, there's not a single check mark in green. Nothing. So Netanyahu is a big trouble right now. Big trouble. Big trouble. And to be honest, I don't see an exit for the guy. And as I said, basically, the forecast is that Netanyahu is going to basically fail at the end of the day because he's working against the American administration. Now, he's trying to buy time until Trump comes in. Will Trump save him? I believe no. But this is for a different forecast, maybe for a different episode, inshallah.
So Hezbollah's resurgence has been pretty quick, and we've seen the recent attack on the Golani base. Can you tell us more about what happened and have they regrouped?
Yeah, so many people expected Hezbollah to really falter. Like the Israelis were trying to push lots of media. It seemed they wanted to add a psych op to what they've done in terms of assassinations and so forth. And many people expected the Hezbollah to crumble, to be honest. They destroyed the whole, top of the pyramid leadership. But what happened is basically what we see right now on the ground is that they have been able to regroup and recreate a full leadership operational room. Fully, it seems secretive because Israel couldn't assassinate anybody anymore. So the assassinations stopped. That means basically the leak and the infiltration of Hezbollah have been eliminated, yeah. So they've been able to eliminate the infiltration, whatever led to that, right? So it seems Hezbollah right now is running fully. The statements they're in control. They're releasing statements on a regular basis. They've been able to have the full force on the south in full control. And we see that clearly in the invasion, right? The ground invasion. There hasn't been a ground invasion yet, fully, in the real meaning of the word. There's been 10 towns that the Israelis have been trying to come into Lebanon, at least 10 towns. Some of them basically are on the coast, like Ras al-Naura. And that's basically an area in the west side. And again, they haven't been able to move in as much. There's Ramie, which is literally in the middle of the southern borders. And there's lots of cities basically on the east, from the bottom to the top. Kfar Kalla is at the top, and basically you have Marun al-Ras and Yarun at the bottom. So these cities are these towns. The Israelis did not send tanks. You need to understand, basically, usually in such an invasion, you go in with your tanks first and you invade. They did that in 2006 and they got destroyed. That's why the Israelis lost in 2006 fully, and Lebanon was freed, and Hezbollah won a big victory. Most of their tanks were destroyed. Almost all their tanks that came into Lebanon were destroyed. Why? Because Hezbollah invested a lot in anti-tank guided missiles. They have French ones, they have Russian ones, they have Iranian-made ones, a plethora of types of ATGMs, right? So that's one. So the Israelis learned their lesson. They're like, no, we're not going with our tanks first, right? Like a tank costs a lot of money.
It shows, Sheikh, that the conventional warfare is just completely just changing on its head.
Well, this is asymmetrical warfare. Yeah. That's what it is, right? Asymmetrical warfare, this is how it works, like David and Goliath. So the weaker side, which is Hezbollah, is way weaker than the Israeli army, way weaker. They use different tactics to be able to, withstand the humongous force of the Israelis, right? So anyway, right now their style or their tactics is to use infantry squads to come into these towns and try to clear it with basically support from aerial bombardments, right? So they've been able to proceed. They've been able to proceed inside Lebanon, let's say between 200 and 800 meters in certain towns. But that's really it.
Wow.
Not even a full kilometer.
Wow.
Yeah, and they used to, and sadly they're hiding behind the UNIFIL, which is the United Nations forces there, and they're shooting at the UNIFIL, which is crazy. Nobody's saying anything. But this is the world we're living in. Unfortunately, the United Nations is nothing. Nobody believes in it anymore. It's literally a joke. But put that aside. So that's number one. Number one is that they have full control. They have been able to push back the Israelis and cause lots of... There's casualties on both sides, but the Israelis got lots of casualties too. They failed at the invasion. Until now, there is no real invasion of Lebanon. The third thing is the operation that they did. The reservists, all these reserve soldiers were there. But what's more, people are talking about basically the casualties and so forth. Put that aside. Yes, there's 100 soldiers were wounded, and maybe 15 were killed or whatever the number is. But what I basically thought was the most interesting is like, how did they know exactly when they were there was everybody was in the dinner area in the cafeteria or whatever eating. So they knew exactly what they're doing. Like they timed it so well. They had intelligence from inside Israel. Now this is not, this doesn't show that basically Hezbollah is just like strong and in control inside Lebanon. They have intelligence from inside Israel, just like the Israelis had intelligence about them. This was a big message, I think. Hezbollah sending a message that, we can hurt you too. So from an analytical part, this is a big thing from a military strategy perspective.
What kind of intelligence? Is it like people on the ground, or is it what kind of?
Well, that we don't know. We don't know if basically have they been able to hack devices or recruit basically agents in the inside, or the most interesting thing is basically Hezbollah have published 3 videos. They call them the hudhud. The hudhud is a type of bird that basically flies. So this is like the intelligence surveillance of the Israeli geography. And they showed that they basically know building by building what is each building's for and so forth. So it seems they have lots of reconnaissance type of drones that have been flying through Israel without detection, and they've been able to survey the areas and take high resolution pictures and so forth. So it seems basically both sides have intelligence upon each other. You see what I'm saying? But until now, basically, I see the Hezbollah side and the Iranian side. Until now, basically, they don't want to go into an all war. They're reserved, and they're trying to basically, it's tit for tat. That's really it. The Israelis want escalation. The Lebanese side and the Iranian side do not want escalation. And this can be seen because they're only sending messages. Because see, if they can do that much damage, they could have basically done way more. Why are they not doing it? Because they do not want escalation. Definitely, Lebanon would be destroyed fully. So the weaker side does not want escalation. It's understandable. The weaker side just wants to push back. In this situation, by the way, always understand that basically that the weaker side will win if the stronger side did not achieve their objective. That's how the weaker side wins. You see what I'm saying? Hezbollah is not going to go invade Israel. They don't have the capacity to do that. They barely can protect Lebanon, right? And they can't even protect Lebanon from the air. As you can see, basically the bombardment, the assassinations, and so forth. The Israelis can blow up anything they want in the country. Can Hezbollah stop them? No. No, but they don't have anything that can basically take out the F-35s and the F-16s and the F-15s that the Israelis have. So definitely the Lebanese are the weaker side, and it's asymmetrical warfare. So they can only defend and try to basically resist so the Israelis do not achieve their objectives. And that's how they would win, basically.
So with Israel, they have these anti-missile defense systems. How is it that Hezbollah was able to strike a base into deep into their land? Actually, is it just anywhere? Yeah,
it's a very good question. So they and this is another sign that they're fully recovered. Really, you need to understand what the measure to see if Hezbollah fully recovered. They have been able to execute this complex operation with full confidence, right? So they know exactly where these air defense systems are located and how to disrupt them, okay, or distract them, maybe. Yeah. So first of all, there's 4 types of systems, right? It's not people say Iron Dome. Iron Domes, maybe people use it basically to mean everything, but there's 4 systems in Israel. Each one basically covers a specific range and altitude. The smallest is the Iron Dome, which is kind of around less than 70 kilometers. This was made for Gaza, actually, because they have these little small missiles, right? So the Iron Dome is for small, short-range missiles. The second one is the David Sling. It's a little bit more, and this is what was used, and this is what they tried to distract, because the base was closer to Haifa than the Lebanese border. The third is basically the Arrow 2, and then the Arrow 3 is the highest. Those 4 basically longer range missiles, both of them, right? One is like 300 plus kilometers, and the other one is even way more, right? Anyway, so the Israelis had their air defense system batteries all over the place. The Hezbollah basically shot lots of missiles to distract those, and then they pushed forth a bunch of drones, right? Different types, actually, they said there's different types, whatever it is, but some of them got shot down, and some of them have been able to. It's a numbers game. Right, it's like these systems basically work with this is statistical, really. And then there's limited number of missiles that can be shot within a specific number of time, so you can distract those, and then you can send the drones. So they knew what they were doing, but most interestingly, they've been able to hit the target at the right time. How did they know that basically these soldiers or reservists were having dinner? Like they hit at this is the bigger thing for me. Like all the stuff that we discussed is basically like basics, right? Like, distracting the air defense systems, blah blah. But being able to know that they are having dinner at this specific hour in this specific building, blah 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 blah. I think this is where the sophistication is in. You see what I'm saying? So, and I think the Israelis really got like, I think they were shocked real bad. Forget the numbers, basically. 100 soldiers basically were wounded, and 15 maybe were killed. They killed 5,000 they injured 5,000 or 4,000 for Hezbollah. Definitely, it's a small hit compared to what the Israelis have done. But yeah, so it seems Hezbollah is fully recovered, and they're fully operation. They've been able to replace the leadership, and the leadership seems to be secure and be able to communicate securely, which is why Israel has not been able to assassinate anybody from that leadership since then.
The infamous pager incident and Nasrallah's assassination marked a pretty dark chapter for Hezbollah. We saw that 4 layers of leadership have been, taken out and been replaced. So where does betrayal come from? And who are these players? It seems like there's someone internal, someone external, or both. What's your analysis?
Well, to be honest, look, I think the Israeli penetration of Hezbollah, I'm pretty sure happened with assistance from the Syrian regime. Okay? And also basically maybe other allies of Israel inside Lebanon, including Hezbollah members. So these are the 3 culprits: the Syrian regime, the allies of Israelis inside Lebanon, like the Kuwait and other people basically within the Lebanese regimes and systems, and most importantly, Hezbollah members themselves and recruits in al-Dahi and so forth. So right now what Hezbollah have basically, and the Lebanese police have said that there's lots of people that they captured that were recruited by Mossad, which is the intelligence agency in Israel, through WhatsApp and through Facebook and through whatever. And they took pictures of buildings and they reported names and they knocked on doors, being delivery people, lots of stuff. And this was reported on Lebanese channels with names sometimes of the people. But definitely I would say being able to know all this high level information cannot be just these people. It has to come from the inside. So I can tell you basically the Syrian regime wants to continue to live. Bashar al-Assad could be taken out any time. So they're like a prostitute to the Israelis. And that means basically they will always serve. And that's why basically I'm putting a big, heavy possibility of the Syrian regime being a big culprit in this. Not the only one, but a big one, or a big possibility that they are. And as I said earlier, the Israelis right now are trying to go through Al-Khnitra, which is the area adjacent to the Golan Heights, to maybe outflank Hezbollah and attack them from the Syrian land into Lebanon. And the Assad regime pulled their forces, as I said earlier, and they're welcoming to the Israelis to come in.
So in this case, then, how would Syria, because most people's impression of Syria is just like, a corrupt nation, terrible regime that's been slaughtering their own people, doesn't seem to be strong, not really associated with intelligence. So how are they able to now reach in to kind of manipulate or even have
the Hezbollah for a long time, they were subservient to the Syrian regime for a long time. So the relationships and have been built over tens of years since 1982 until now. It's 40 years plus. It's not about intelligence. It's about basically the Syrian. It's about connections and relationships. Like the corrupt only will deal with the corrupt. All the Syrian regime is corrupt. They know the corrupt individuals in Hezbollah to get this stuff. The Syrians do have all the lines and the connections to be able to support and serve the Israelis without a doubt.
So from a military point of view, as Israel is looking to enter deeper into Lebanon and Hezbollah is looking to defend southern Lebanon, what are some strategic locations that may be the focus for this war? Yeah,
so look, until now, they have not been able to make any progress throughout the regular Lebanese border. So the latest news is that the Israelis have been unmining. The Israelis, when they invaded the Golan Heights, they planted mines everywhere, but they know where their mines are. So right now they're cleaning up the mines so they can utilize that area. So it seems they want to flank Hezbollah and go inside Syria to outflank Hezbollah and go from the Biqa Valley, a little bit over. We said Kfar Kella was the highest point right now where they're trying to enter, which is kind of like where the Litani makes a turn northwards. This is a proof that the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad is not just a treacherous, despicable, and draconian regime. They are allies of the Israelis. And those who've been saying, oh, the Syrian regime, the Assad regime is part of the axis for resistance, to be honest, it's to say the least, it's a shame on anybody who claims any resistance, to include Bashar al-Assad, who smashed a whole population and raped the whole population. The amount of rape that happens and torture that happens in the Assad regime is one of the worst regimes on planet Earth. And they don't care. They care about staying in power. This minority in Syria called they call them the Alawites. They're called the Nusayris. They're not Muslim sect. They've allied with the Israelis fully. What you saw in the Golan Height, there's a couple Syrian divisions or battalions, maybe not even divisions. Basically, the Syrian regime took them out and sent them up north to go and destroy and bomb the free Syrian areas. You see what I'm saying? So they're basically telling the Israelis, come on in, and then you can smash Hezbollah from the Syrian lands. Anybody who believes that the Assad regime, which is despicable, draconian, disgusting, monstrous regime, is part of any type of resistance, is a fool. So, wallahi, it's foolish. It's beyond foolishness. And that's why what Hezbollah is facing right now, and we can discuss that basically when we discuss or we can discuss it right now. Basically, the reason Hezbollah have been infiltrated is because of the Syrian regime. Now, I believe personally that a good possibility, because we don't know. There's lots of newspapers, especially Israeli newspapers, been trying to say, oh, it's the Iranians were the ones who gave information about Hezbollah, and this is again another psych op, right? The first psych op we discussed that is Hezbollah is imploding because of the lack of leadership and so forth. That didn't happen. The second psych op is trying to basically create a wedge between Iran and suspiciousness between Iran and Hezbollah. It didn't work either. One of the generals of the Revolutionary Guards that was responsible for Hezbollah in Lebanon, General Khani, was captured by the Iranians and tortured and blah blah, and he's the one who basically was sent information. All this turned out to be bogus. So the Iranians basically showed video that he was there in the I think Friday prayers. So all that was gibberish. Where did this infiltration happen? It's either through Hezbollah members, and Hezbollah members have lots of despicable people, to be honest. There's lots of despicable members. I don't know basically is it's part of the leadership or not, but you have to basically at the end of the day, hold the leadership accountable. They run trafficking networks, drug trafficking networks. As I said many times, I'm going to keep saying it, they were behind the slaughtering of Sunni civilians who revolted against this despicable regime that Hezbollah thought it is protecting its back. Well, let's see what's happening right now. The Syrians are welcoming the Israelis to come in, and how many times did basically inside Syria, lots of Iranians and Hezbollah leaders were shot inside Damascus in like very sensitive areas and so on. Who gave all that information? It has to be the Syrian regime. But put that aside. Right now, basically, if they go through the Golan Heights and basically attack the Hezbollah from Syria, maybe people will wake up, and the foolishness about the Assad regime being part of the axis of resistance, blah blah blah, will be hopefully a nightmare for many people. It's not. This regime is a despicable regime that has been an ally to the Israelis since the beginning of the Assad regime in the 70s, if not before, probably late 60s.
In April, in April when Iran did their first strike on Israel, they had their militias in Iraq that shot with them. They had also Hezbollah. They had also the Houthis, and also I believe was Syria as well was part of that. So some people say that Syria is part of the resistance. No.
Syrians maybe Hezbollah in Syria, but not the Syrians. Syrians did not do anything. Actually, they pulled out from the Qnaytra, which is the area just adjacent to the Golan Heights. The Syrian regime is pulled up. They said, "Come on in, welcome." There's zero Syrian activity basically within this whole fiasco or war. There's zero.
So, Sheikh, back in 2006, Israel did a few different things, right? You mentioned sending the armored, vehicles first. They learned their lesson from that, but they struck in 2006 the bridges, power stations and more were targeted. Is there a reason why Israel hasn't targeted those specific locations? It seems like maybe they're holding back, having some restraint. What's really happening here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's a couple things, or three things, I would say. And one of them will take us to maybe another thing that we might want to discuss today, which is the internal risks of Hezbollah. You need to understand, Lebanon was created with Sykes-Picot in World War I to keep it volatile. This is how basically the colonialists, the French and the British at that time, wanted to design the area. Look at basically the Kurds. The Kurds, for example, the area where the Kurdish population is, instead of it being basically, let's say, if people had like benevolent intention, they would have drawn a border across that, keep the people together. No, literally it was split into four. One piece is in Turkey, one piece is in Iran, one piece is in Iraq, and one piece is in Syria. Why? To create continuous instability in the Muslim world, so the Muslim world never ever comes back as a civilization. Lebanon is like that too. It has, let's say, 20% Christians, 30% Sunnis, let's say 3% or 2% Druze. There is, let's say, 40% Shia, and there's a few percent of everything else. It's just, that's how it is. Sadly, the country is in continuous instability. Why? Because now, the French gave the strength to the Christians. And then, throughout the years now, basically, the Americans wanted Iran to become a big player in the region. That's where the Shia in Lebanon basically were boosted by the Iranian regional strategy and so forth. So, as you can see, things in Lebanon are up in the air. The French always basically defended at least a good portion of the Christian Maronites. The Europeans have been pushing to keep Lebanon stable. Like, imagine Lebanon got destroyed. It's not good for the Israelis, by the way, because Israelis don't want chaos. The Israelis would like the specific section of the Christian population, which is Al-Quwat al-Lebaniyya, which is the same people that were responsible for the Sabra and Shatila massacre. When Sharon came in 1982, invaded all of Lebanon until Beirut, and then surrounded there's two civilian camps, literally Palestinian camps, and these Christian militias came in and slaughtered everybody. They slaughtered, they took babies and they crushed their heads in the walls. This is what happened. Who did that? The same faction. So this same faction, just like the Bashar al-Assad regime, are the best friends of the Israelis. Those same factions right now are creating a big risk for Hezbollah. These people also, they're the allies of the Israelis. Israelis want to destroy Hezbollah and give power in Lebanon to these people. Now, these people don't want like a destroyed Lebanon. They want so the Israelis, maybe they have a reason why to keep Lebanon intact, unlike Gaza. Okay? Number two, the Europeans want also an intact Lebanon. Probably the Americans want an intact Lebanon. And the fourth thing is military thing, is basically that the Hezbollah could hurt Israel. One of the Hezbollah military strategists was on Lebanese TV a few days ago. He was saying, look, Hezbollah has anti-ship missiles. And if you remember, in 2006, basically, Hezbollah, they hit an Israeli destroyer or cruiser, like a military ship, basically. So he was saying on Lebanese TV that the Hezbollah should go and smash the oil refineries of the Israelis in the Mediterranean. He said, like, just hit one and they'll understand basically not to touch us. So the Israelis, they know that if they're going to hit some certain infrastructure in Lebanon, it will be an escalation. Would Netanyahu do it? He's nuts. He's done crazy things. I don't know. He might do it. But I'm just saying, basically, that will be part of the equation. You're asking me why. So at the end of the day, I don't sit in people's minds. But you need to understand the equation. So hitting the Lebanese infrastructure, the Americans are against it, the Europeans are against it, the friends of the Israelis are against it. The Israelis themselves might be against their interests right now. You see what I'm saying? And don't forget, even in 2006, not the whole Lebanese infrastructure was hit, maybe a little bit. They wanted to create, because they got hit hard, so they wanted to respond back and create some pain. Why? Because they want the Lebanese population to hate Hezbollah. Hezbollah came back, they rebuilt everything, and it became super popular. You need to understand, in 2006, the whole Muslim world was Hezbollah. Right now, basically, 3/4 of the Muslim world is against Hezbollah because of their crimes against the Syrian civilians in Syria. There's only a small subset of the Muslim world that's with Hezbollah, those who don't know what's happened, maybe outside the Arab world. Number two is the Palestinians. That's really it. The Syrians are against them, the Iraqis are against them, most of the Arabs are against them. So you need to understand, it's not the same popular movement that it was in 2006. So this is why maybe the Israelis. But could they escalate and do it? Again, to be honest, basically Netanyahu is nuts, and sometimes he might be reactionary to make some gains or to cause some pain, and he's doing things that basically In recent history, it hasn't been done. They just burned people alive. They just shot in Gaza. They shot a whole camp of civilian tents and burned people alive.
What risks does Hezbollah face in Lebanon, and how might these internal challenges affect the conflict?
Look, I already kind of noted some of that in my previous answer, but Hezbollah right now, from an internal perspective, there's few risks. Number one is the Al-Quwat Lebaniyya. Al-Quwat Lebaniyya is this Christian faction that right now they've been attacking Hezbollah. So yesterday, a couple of days ago, Israel bombed this civilian building in, if I'm not mistaken, Kasserwan. So it's a Christian area. So Shia, basically, the Shia in the south basically were displaced, right? The south is not just Shia, majority Shia, but there's Sunnis and there's also Christians. So there's a couple million or 1.5 million people were displaced. So they killed just civilians. Okay, there's nobody there except civilians, and all the bodies were counted and identified by the Lebanese police and so forth. What happened? The Christian MP started attacking Hezbollah. Lots of Christian journalists and politicians right now are attacking Hezbollah, that he got us into this mess. And one of them basically specifically was accusing Hezbollah of hiding militants and weaponry in civilian buildings. That's craziness. Now, is there some? Maybe. But bro, first of all, this is a Christian city. So why would they be there? These people were just mostly displaced people. Or if there was some Shia family, whatever, it's just like it's a very, Hezbollah would never do that, because all the eyes would be like Lebanon. You need to understand Lebanon. Lebanon is kind of a little bit like warlords, basically, almost, or gang lords. Each one has their own place. When you have your place, you have your spies, your eyes. Hezbollah wouldn't do this because he would risk anything. He would risk, if he had personnel there, he'd risk them. If they have storage facilities, he'd risk them. Definitely this is not. And there isn't. Like, there was some pictures basically of storage places, for example, in the south and so forth. Maybe in the south, because that's fully Shia areas. You're speaking about like a Christian city, Christian town. So all this is bogus. And now Hezbollah has been attacked literally. Now Hezbollah basically will never respond to any of this. Okay? What they will do, they will not tolerate it, but after. So let's see what happens. The second is basically some of the Shia themselves. Some of the Shia might, and this is a low probability, but I'm listing all the options, also get very dissatisfied with Hezbollah. And the third is basically the general Sunnis. General Sunnis are split in Lebanon, I guess you can say, but maybe a majority basically kind of, they have no strength, so they have to just like go with the flow, really. But, lots of Sunnis also feel the pain of the Syrians, what happened in Syria, because they know what happened. All the atrocities and just like the idea, because see, the Lebanese people know the Assad regime. They lived under the occupation of the current president's dad, and Hezbollah went and protected that regime. So from a Shia rhetoric perspective, they always say Al-Hussein alayhi salam versus Yazid the tyrant. So what did you do? You actually went and supported the tyrant against the Husseins, which are the rebellious Sunni civilians who are fed up with the tyrant. Like, you just went against your own basic, fundamental, single one, ultimate belief in Shia school of thoughts. So these are the risks. The risks is basically if Hezbollah gets weakened enough, and if Israel gets to weaken Hezbollah enough, and then strengthen its allies in Lebanon, this might crush Hezbollah in the future. And the American ambassador to Lebanon, or one of the State Department personnel, was saying that Hezbollah will not have any role in Lebanese in Lebanon except being a civilian-based political party at best. So that means basically demilitarization of Hezbollah. So that's the biggest risk. The biggest risk is Hezbollah losing its stature for them, really, basically from their perspective. And then other factions, whether other Shia or the Sunnis or the Christians, being able to be empowered by, again, always external forces. Lebanon is too small. Every single political actor inside Lebanon has a direct connection to a regional or a superpower. As I said, the Quwat Lebaniyya, they're always tied to France all the time. The Druze and Jumblat, they're tied to the British. People don't like that. The Sunnis might be, some of them are tied to the Saudis. The Christians are two factions. Some of them with Michel Aoun and the Tayyar al-Hur, the free party, whatever it's called, is tied to Washington, D.C., to the Americans. every single political actor in Lebanon, these small little countries, every actor will always basically tie themselves to a regional or a global power. This is how politics work. You see what I'm saying? We don't live in vacuum. Lebanon is not on Mars, isolated from the world. International relations come into the game at all aspects of politics, especially the strategic and the vital ones.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh.
Allah yabarak feek. May
Bless
bless you.
you. All right,
Jazakumullah khair.
everybody. So, inshallah ta'ala, we'll see you all in the next episode of the i3 Pulse. Comment down below. What do you think of the episode? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And more importantly, what would you like us to discuss on the upcoming show? And we'll make sure we talk about it. We'll see you all soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.